Speaking of technical debt, ladies and gentlemen, it's Ben Evans. Ben joined the Lustre world in 2008 when he joined TerraScala, where built tools for Lustre management, built tools for Lustre management and did performance-based research. In 2015, Ben was part of an acquisition of meat-based resources, also known as people, by Cray. Who laughed? You're a maniac. Where he now works on eliminating technical debt in the Lustre upstream code base. He's been a part of the benchmarking working group and the Lustre working group. Please welcome Ben Evans, you the man. You know, technical debt is really important. And sometimes, you know, you need to like claim that technical debt, and sometimes you need to collect that technical debt. And anyway, Ben Evans.
Thank you. Sometimes when I describe to my mom what I do these days, I refer to myself as a software janitor. So yeah. Removing technical debt. Every project that's been around a long time has a lot of it. Lustre's been around a long time. So technical debt is generally work that needs to be done to keep a code base up to date. And that's removing old code, refactoring existing code, commenting and documenting what you've got, keeping up with the current standards. We were doing that with Tabathon, where, you know, go through every single line of code and make sure it's indented correctly. These are small things, but if everybody agrees on the way it's done, it looks nice. Naming things, one of the two hardest bits of software engineering. Grouping things together. You have 5 functions. They all are supposed to work together. Put them in one file. Name them similarly. The list goes on, but it's just keeping things neat and clean and functional. So there's some things you can do day to day to reduce the amount of technical debt you create. You can document what you've written and comment it. No, we don't have much of that. You can name things in a way that makes sense. You can try not to be clever, because figuring out what code does is always harder than writing it. And remember who the audience of your code is. It's you. It's not the compiler. It's you at least 6 months from now, when you've forgotten exactly how this function works. Probably on a weekend when someone is called up and said, hey, this broke and we need you to fix it. At 3 a.m. because it's really important. I could go on, but I won't. The good place to start for some of this stuff is the Lustre coding style guidelines. My personal favorite one in there is do what it says on the tin. It's a nice expression where if you have a function or a variable that says one thing, that's what it should do. Keep the names distinct. Here's an example from, I think it's Portal RPC. Rec message and rep message. Read that 100 times in a single function and don't get confused. So you can expand on that and use descriptive names to make the code clearer, but don't let things get out of hand so your variable names go on and on and on and are impossible to type. Comment your functions. Describe what it does. Describe the inputs, describe the outputs, what you're changing, things like that. As a small example, this is one that I ran across and somebody said, hey, maybe you could improve that. It's a simple example, it's a pretty obvious function. MDD changelog on. Looks like you turn on the change logs, right? Gives you a few variables, and that's one of the places in the code it's called. Here's another one. And if you're just scanning the code, you say changelog on, yeah. All right, well, what's this 1 and 0 stuff? Go and look in the header. And this is, I cut and copied and then trimmed a bit out so it would fit on the slide. But you have your environment variable, your data structure for the MDD device, and then a variable called on. So if you call changelog on with on equals 1, you're actually turning it off. Or turning it on, if you're calling it with 0, you're turning it off. So you're calling changelog on to turn off. Anyway, this was not obvious to me. And the great thing is that the code to turn it on and turn it off have nothing to do with each other. So I split it up into 2 different functions, one that's called changelog on and one that's called changelog off. I also added comments, but again, I wanted to fit it on the slide. Figured you didn't need to see them. As I said, things left out of the example. Adding comments, renaming some variables. I don't think I actually did that because they were pretty good as it was. Testing, and to go through and find all the places where changelogs were turned on and make sure that I was in fact still turning them on, turning them off, and actually turning them off. Going through and getting the code reviews. That was easy for this, and on and on and on. What this means to coders is pretty obvious, but as somebody said, what does this sort of thing mean to actual admins or users? It means you can get some fun, quirky behavior. Like, you can register and unregister changelog users on the MDS. You can view and purge changelog users on a client, but you can only view what records you can actually view by using cat on the MDS, and then you have to go on the client to actually look at what those are. If you're sitting at a keyboard, it's a real pain. You also get things labeled dangerous. If you type in LCTL -- help, you get a couple of good things in there. There's an entire section labeled obsolete. All right, if they're obsolete, why didn't you just delete them? LCTL, there's a section called testing. We have an entire test suite that's compiled separately. Move the code over there. You have LCTL -- ignore errors and ignore errors. And they're defined, they're the same thing. There's just 2 options that do exactly the same thing. Pick one. So I can go on and on and on and talking about technical debt. I have. We talked about this at Developer Day yesterday, and there was a lot of ideas like having a few-day hackathon where whoever's interested comes in and comments the hell out of code. Organizing your documentation for or design docs for functions in places that are simple and easy to find. Making sure that in code reviews, if you have, that if you're working in a function, you should comment it. So that's kind of it. Any questions? I burned through that a little faster than I thought I would, but whatever. Gets you closer to beer.
So if someone wants to participate in sort of technical debt removal, or they might have some meat byproducts that they could throw at this situation, would you be willing to accept
Yeah,
Mail?
I would love to have mail.
All right. This is really crucial stuff. I mean, there's a closet in my house that I haven't looked at for 10 years.
And this is like the closet in Steve's house.
Well, no.
Probably less scary.
Mine's probably messier, but Ben Evans, thanks for doing the work you do.
All right.
Thanks for the presentation. Let's hear it for Ben Evans.